Have you ever done everything for someone, only to realize that all your sacrifices meant nothing to them? I thought I knew my sister. I thought family meant loyalty, support, love. I was wrong. I spent years working 2 jobs, barely sleeping, just to pay for her education, her apartment, her every whim. I thought I was helping her build a future. I thought I was being a good sister. That dinner started like any other family gathering. We were crowded around the table, laughter and chatter filling the room. My sister Claire sat across from me, scrolling on her phone, completely absorbed in herself. And then she said it. A casual, flippant insult that cut deeper than any blade. She looked at me and laughed, saying, "You are such a loser. I do not know why you even try. Man, you have no idea how it feels to have your entire world collapse in one sentence." I froze. My fork clattered onto my plate. My hands shook. And for a moment, I just wanted to disappear. Everyone else at the table pretended they did not hear. They chuckled quietly. They did not intervene. No one cared. But I remembered every hour, every dollar, every sleepless night. I remembered all the times I covered her tuition, paid her rent, bought her textbooks, signed forms she was too lazy to complete. I remembered how I sacrificed my own dreams, my own plans for her comfort, and she sat there mocking me. I took a deep breath and stood up. My voice was calm, controlled, but underneath, my heart was a storm. "If you think I am a loser, maybe you should start paying your own way," I said. There was a pause. Claire blinked. Confusion and shock crossed her face. She was used to getting everything without question. "I am done," I continued. "Done paying for your apartment, done covering your bills, done making sure you can live a life you have not earned. From now on, you are responsible for yourself." The room went silent. My parents looked at me like I had grown 2 heads overnight. My mother opened her mouth, probably to protest, but I cut her off. "No, I will not explain myself. You know exactly what I have done for her. And she knows exactly what she has done to me." Claire laughed nervously, thinking this was a joke. She always thought everything was a joke. "You are kidding, right? You cannot just—" "Yes, I can. And I am," I said. "You will figure it out. I will no longer enable your lifestyle. You will learn responsibility the hard way." I could see the panic spreading across her face. My sister had never faced real consequences. Everything had been handed to her. And suddenly she realized the game had changed. Her apartment was paid through the end of the month, and that was it. Utilities? Her problem. Rent next month? Her problem. I made sure every payment stopped immediately. Everyone at the table stared. My parents were speechless. My mother opened her mouth again, but the words got stuck. My father cleared his throat and muttered something about how she was family and I was overreacting, but I did not care. For once, I was done caring about appearances, about their approval, about their judgment. I was protecting myself. Over the next few weeks, the fallout was intense. Claire called, begged, pleaded. I told her the only way to get help was to find a job, pay her own bills, and stop relying on others. She screamed, cried, threatened, and I stayed firm. For the first time in years, I did not crumble under her pressure. I realized that being kind and generous does not mean letting people walk over you. My parents tried to intervene, but they had seen this side of me before. They knew I was serious. They could argue, scold, guilt-trip me, but it would not change a thing. I had found my boundary, and I was not crossing it again. And then came the day when Claire finally had to face reality. Her bank called. Her landlord called. Her phone was buzzing with overdue notices. She could not borrow money from friends because she had burned every bridge relying on others. She was forced to get a part-time job, then a full-time job, and slowly, painfully, she learned what it meant to earn something herself. It was a long, grueling process. There were tears, breakdowns, and tantrums. I watched from a distance, keeping my distance, letting her feel the weight of her choices. I did not gloat. I did not celebrate, but I knew that this was necessary. She had learned nothing from me giving her everything. The lesson had to come from life itself. Months passed. Claire became less entitled, less brash, more responsible, and I felt a strange sense of relief. I had survived her betrayal. I had survived the humiliation at the dinner table, and I had learned that protecting myself was not selfish. It was necessary. It was not easy. Family gatherings were awkward, tense, filled with quiet resentment, but I no longer flinched when they whispered behind my back. I no longer let guilt or shame dictate my actions. I had reclaimed my life, my finances, my peace of mind. I had always thought being the generous sister meant sacrifice without question. I was wrong. Being generous means knowing your limits. Being generous means teaching lessons through action, not just words. Being generous does not mean letting yourself be humiliated and taken for granted. And that dinner, the night Claire called me a loser, was the turning point. It was the moment I realized I had the power to change everything. I had the power to say no. I had the power to set boundaries. I had the power to demand respect. Looking back now, I understand that betrayal is painful, but it can also be liberating. It forces you to confront the truth, face the consequences, and grow stronger. And sometimes, the people who hurt you the most teach you the most important lessons, if you are willing to learn. I never looked at Claire the same way again. I never let anyone underestimate me again. And I never let my kindness be mistaken for weakness. That night, I turned humiliation into liberation. That night, I stopped being a victim. And I realized something even more powerful. You cannot change others. You can only change yourself and your boundaries. You can only control your actions, your choices, your dignity. Everything else is out of your hands. That dinner, the words "you are a loser" no longer haunted me. Instead, they became a catalyst, a turning point, a reminder that I had the courage to stand up for myself. Claire adapted, learned, and eventually, I saw glimpses of gratitude, respect, and accountability in her. She would never fully admit it, and she might never forgive, but I did not need that. I had reclaimed my life, my voice, my power, my peace. And the most shocking revelation of all, I realized I had underestimated myself for years. I had the strength, the courage, and the clarity to do what needed to be done. I had the ability to enforce change, even when it was uncomfortable, even when it hurt those I loved. That night, I learned the truth that everyone should learn. Protecting yourself is not betrayal. Setting boundaries is not cruelty. Saying no is not weakness. And finally, realizing your worth is the most powerful act of all. Months passed, and life slowly shifted into a rhythm I had not expected. Claire had her job, her own apartment, and she was struggling, truly struggling for the first time in her life. And I watched, not with glee, not with revenge, but with a strange sense of calm. Finally, the scales had balanced. It was not immediate. There were nights I got frantic phone calls, sobbing, screaming, blaming me for everything. "You are so cruel," she would yell. "I cannot believe you would do this to me." And I would stay silent. I had learned that silence, more than any argument, carried power. Every threat, every insult bounced off. I no longer reacted to her emotional manipulation. I simply listened, hung up when necessary, and let her experience her consequences. The more she struggled, the more our family began noticing the change. My parents tried subtle interventions at first. They would suggest, "Maybe you can help her just a little," just to get her back on her feet, and I would smile politely and say, "I believe she can manage. She is capable." That phrase drove them insane. It drove Claire insane. She had never been left to manage on her own. And suddenly she had to learn how to make rent, how to budget groceries, how to navigate life without a constant bailout. And every failure reminded her of the choices she had made. Every missed deadline, every utility notice, every awkward conversation with a landlord. Then came the day she finally hit rock bottom. Her car broke down, and she had no money to fix it. She called, voice trembling, admitting for the first time, I think I need your help." I hesitated. Not because I did not want to help, but because the timing was crucial. She needed to understand that help had to be earned, not demanded. "I will help," I said finally, "but only if you promise to pay me back and never rely on me like this again." That moment was transformative. Claire realized that there were real boundaries, real expectations, and that I would not let her manipulate me. She agreed, reluctantly, begrudgingly, but she agreed. Over the next few months, she started changing, slowly, painfully. She took responsibility for her actions, for her life, for her choices. And I, for the first time in years, could breathe. I felt a weight lift off my shoulders that I had carried silently, resentfully, and almost without realizing it. But the story did not end there. While Claire was learning the hard way, our family dynamics began to shift in subtle, almost imperceptible ways. My parents, who had once mocked me for being the loser sister, started treating me differently. They approached me with hesitancy, respect edging into their tone, though they would never admit it outright. One evening, we all gathered for a casual family dinner. The tension was palpable. Claire had her new job, her own finances, and her apartment. She was more mature, more cautious, and even a little humbled. And I, sitting across from her, could see the wheels turning in her head. She had learned humility, accountability, and respect the hard way. And then, the most shocking moment happened. My mother, who had always been critical, harsh, and judgmental, quietly leaned over and said, I think I underestimated you." Just those words. Simple, understated, sent a chill down my spine. Not because I needed validation, but because it marked a shift in the way they perceived me, finally acknowledging my strength, my boundaries, my independence. It was not immediate. There were setbacks. Claire had moments of relapse, slipping back into entitlement, trying to manipulate situations, but each time I stood firm. Each time she faced the consequences of her own choices, and slowly the lessons stuck. Then came the moment that truly solidified everything. My sister called me one evening, voice steady, serious. "I just want to say, I get it now. I understand what you were trying to do all those years. I understand the sacrifices. I understand why you had to stop." Her words were not filled with bitterness. They were filled with understanding, reflection, and finally respect. And I realized in that moment that the long journey of silent revenge, of setting boundaries, of letting her face reality had worked. Life did not magically become perfect. Our family remained complicated, relationships remained tense at times. But I had discovered a power I never realized I had, the power to enforce boundaries, to protect my peace, and to demand respect without apology. And it was not just about Claire. It was about me, about finally reclaiming my dignity, my self-worth, and my freedom. For years, I had allowed my generosity to be exploited. I had allowed my love to be taken for granted. I had allowed my own life to be sidelined for the comfort of someone else. No more. The day I stopped funding Claire's life, I began funding my own. I started saving, investing, building a life that was truly mine. I pursued passions I had abandoned, goals I had shelved, and dreams I had postponed. And the irony? As I flourished, Claire began respecting me in ways she never had before. The The respect she had once owed, she now gave willingly. Friends noticed the change too. The way I carried myself, the quiet confidence, the calm that came from knowing my own worth. It drew people in, inspired others, and showed them that standing up for yourself is not cruelty, but clarity. And the most satisfying part of all? Watching my sister evolve, not because I forced her, but because life forced her. She learned accountability, independence, and responsibility. She learned that every action has a consequence. She learned that generosity without boundaries is dangerous. By the end of that year, everything had shifted. Claire had a job, her own apartment, and a growing sense of self-reliance. Our parents treated me with respect. Sometimes grudgingly, but respect nonetheless. And I had finally achieved something that I had never fully realized. I needed peace. I learned that revenge does not have to be loud, vengeful, or dramatic. Sometimes the quiet act of standing firm, of enforcing boundaries, of refusing to be manipulated, is the most powerful revenge of all. And looking back, I do not regret a single moment. I do not regret the silent dinners, the paused payments, the difficult conversations, the fear I felt standing up to my family, because in those moments I discovered strength I never knew I had, courage I never realized existed, and the freedom to finally put myself first. So if you have ever been taken for granted, belittled or betrayed by someone you loved, remember this: your power lies not in punishing them, but in protecting yourself. Your strength lies in silence, in boundaries, in letting reality teach the lessons others refuse to learn. And as I sit here now, reflecting on everything that happened, I understand something profound. Life will always test you, people will always underestimate you, and betrayal may come from those you trust most. But if you are willing to stand firm, face the consequences, and protect your own peace, you will emerge stronger than ever. And the last time Claire called me, she said something I will never forget. Thank you. I get it now. I finally get it. Those words were not just for her. They were for me too. A reminder that even in betrayal, in disappointment, in family chaos, there is clarity, power, and liberation waiting for those brave enough to claim it.